Welcome to our journey through one of the most profound and timeless stories in human history, the story of Abraham. A man of extraordinary faith, Abraham stands as a central figure in the world's three great monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. His life story is not just about ancient times, it's a story of faith, trust, and perseverance that continues to resonate deeply with people across the globe. Abraham is often referred to as the father of faith, and for good reason. His story is foundational to understanding not just religious history, but also the shared values that unite millions of believers worldwide. But who was Abraham? What challenges did he face, and how did he overcome them? What lessons can we take from his incredible journey? In this video, we will delve deep into his life, exploring the moments that defined his legacy and changed the course of history. We'll walk through Abraham's journey, from his early life in the city of Ur to his travels through Canaan, his covenant with God, and his role as the patriarch of nations. We will examine the spiritual, cultural, and historical significance of his story, drawing from sacred texts, historical records, and archaeological discoveries. Abraham is unique in that he is revered in Judaism as the first patriarch and in Christianity as a model of faith. Imagine a man called by an unseen God to leave everything he knows behind, his home, his family, his comfort, to journey into the unknown. This leap of faith is the starting point of Abraham's incredible story, and it is a story that reminds us of the power of trust, courage, and resilience. Our story begins in the ancient city of Ur, a bustling center of commerce and culture. It is here, among the towering ziggurats and thriving markets, that Abram, as he was originally named, was born. Ur was a city of polytheism where people worshiped many gods, but Abram was destined for a unique path. Abram grew up in a family of idol worshippers. His father, Terah, was known to have crafted idols, but Abram's heart longed for something greater. Some traditions say that even as a young man, Abram questioned the legitimacy of worshiping lifeless idols, seeking instead a higher truth. In the midst of this polytheistic world, Abram received a divine call. The Lord said to him, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you." Genesis 12, 1-2. This was no ordinary command. It was an invitation to step into the unknown, to leave behind his home, his extended family, and his heritage. Imagine the weight of this decision. Abram was 75 years old at the time, well past the age when most would embark on such a journey. Yet he chose faith over fear. He believed in God's promise, even though it came without any guarantees or visible proof. Abram took with him his wife, Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all the possessions they had accumulated. Together they journeyed toward Canaan, a land God had promised but that Abram had never seen. The journey wasn't easy. Traveling through vast deserts and rugged terrains, Abram faced not only physical challenges but also the emotional weight of uncertainty. Yet with every step, his faith grew stronger. Finally, Abram arrived in Canaan. In Canaan, God appeared to Abram and reaffirmed his promise. He said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, so shall your offspring be." Abram prepared a sacrifice, and as the sun set, a smoking firepot and a blazing torch passed between the pieces. This was God's way of binding his promise to Abram. The smoking firepot and blazing torch represented God's presence, signifying his unbreakable commitment to his promises. For Abram, this was a moment of profound reassurance and divine connection. Despite this covenant, Abram and Sarai faced years of waiting. God's promises didn't come to fruition immediately. This period of waiting tested their patience and faith. Sarai, in her frustration over her inability to bear children, suggested that Abram have a child with her servant, Hagar. While this was a culturally acceptable practice at the time, it led to unforeseen complications. Hagar bore a son named Ishmael, and God promised that he too would be blessed and become the father of a great nation. However, this wasn't the child God had promised to Abram and Sarai. In time, God reaffirmed his covenant. He renamed Abram to Abraham, meaning father of many nations, and Sarai to Sarah. This change symbolized the fulfillment of God's promises. God also introduced the practice of circumcision as a physical sign of the covenant. This marked Abraham and his descendants as God's chosen people. Despite their old age, God promised that Abraham and Sarah would have a son of their own. This promise seemed impossible, leading Sarah to laugh when she overheard it. But God assured them, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Genesis 18, verse 14. The covenant with God reveals the complexities of faith. Abraham trusted God, but he also faced moments of doubt and human error. Through it all, God's faithfulness never wavered. The covenant was a turning point in Abraham's journey. It not only reaffirmed God's promises, but also set the stage for the birth of Isaac and the continuation of the lineage that would shape history. But Abraham's faith would soon face its greatest test yet. At the age of 100, Abraham finally saw the fulfillment of God's promise with the birth of Isaac. It was a moment of immense joy, a symbol of divine faithfulness. Isaac represented not just the continuation of Abraham's family line, but the covenant itself. But just when everything seemed to be falling into place, Abraham's faith was about to face its ultimate test. God spoke to him again. "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." Imagine the turmoil in Abraham's heart. Isaac wasn't just his beloved son, he was the child of promise. How could God ask for such a sacrifice? Yet Abraham chose obedience, trusting that God's plan had a purpose beyond his understanding. For 3 days, Abraham journeyed to the place God had instructed him. Every step must have felt heavier than the last, as he carried the emotional burden of what was to come. "The fire and wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham replied, "God himself will provide the lamb." This response reveals Abraham's unwavering trust in God's provision. Abraham prepared the altar, placed Isaac upon it, and raised the knife. At the very moment he was about to follow through, the angel of the Lord intervened. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Genesis 22, verse 12. Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. This ram became the substitute for Isaac, symbolizing God's provision and mercy. Abraham named the place, "The Lord will provide," a declaration of his faith in God's provision and sovereignty. This test of faith is a reminder that God's plans are often beyond our comprehension. Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac demonstrates the depth of his trust in God, a trust that calls us to examine our own faith. As Abraham grew older, his life continued to exemplify faith, resilience, and preparation for the future. After the passing of Sarah, Abraham took measures to ensure the fulfillment of God's promises through his descendants. One of Abraham's significant acts in his later years was securing a wife for Isaac. He sent his servant to find a bride, ensuring Isaac's marriage aligned with God's plan. The story of Rebekah's selection is one of divine providence, emphasizing Abraham's trust in God's guidance even in the smallest details. After Sarah's death, Abraham married Keturah, who bore him additional children. These descendants also became significant figures, contributing to the expansion of Abraham's influence as the father of many nations. This fulfillment of the promise that Abraham would be the father of many nations showcases the global impact of his legacy. At the age of 175, Abraham passed away. He was buried by Isaac in the cave of Machpelah, a site he had purchased earlier as a burial place for Sarah. This moment brings together his two sons, Isaac and Ishmael, symbolizing reconciliation and unity, a powerful image of the potential for harmony between nations. Through Isaac, the Jewish nation emerged, tracing its lineage back to Abraham and Sarah. Through Ishmael, Arab nations traced their heritage, holding Abraham as a central figure in their faith and identity. Abraham's descendants span continents and faiths, shaping the course of human history. Theologically, Abraham's legacy is profound. For Jews, he is the patriarch who received the promise of the land and the covenant. For Christians, he is a model of faith whose obedience foreshadows the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus Christ. For Muslims, he is a prophet who exemplified submission to God's will.